I'm curious about your life. And I was thinking, what do I want to know about David first? Because the last time that we sat here, we just had a really great conversation and then decided, let's try doing a podcast. So we're still trying to figure out, we don't have a name for it. We don't even know really where it's going to go. Like we talked possibly on my channel, but there's too much that you know, and there's too much that I want to know and that we could talk about together, mostly about film, acting, just kind of that entertainment world. So I want to know where it all started for you. Like, what were you like as a kid?
Oof. I loved watching television when I was 3.
Really?
Yes. So I have memories of being that little because I was in Buffalo, New York at the time. There's not much to do in Buffalo besides look at a TV when you're a kid because it's snowy outside or whatever. And at that point, it was the first thing was Superman. I loved watching the old Max Fleischer cartoons and then renting Superman movies. My dad would pick up movies for me. So it was a lot of that. It was a lot of pretending to be Superman and all that kind of stuff. But it was probably the first thing started to happen when I saw Mission Impossible and I wanted to act because I thought Tom Cruise was so cool.
Ooh, okay.
So it was like from loving the content to then thinking, oh, I want to be in it. And then The Matrix happened in 5th grade. And that was the moment where it was solidified that I knew I wanted to do that. Like, there's no question anymore. It wasn't, you know, what am I going to do what my dad does? Am I going to pursue something else? At 5th grade, when I saw The Matrix, it was done. I knew.
Was it like acting or just movies?
At that point, it moved into directing. I wanted to direct. Yeah, because I loved the story they told. So I thought, I don't want to just be Neo. I want to, you know, be the Wachowski siblings.
How many are there?
There's 2 of them, but they transitioned from. See, now we're into the political stuff that you don't want to talk about. Oh, they were boys, and now they're girls.
No
I don't know
way.
the proper way to talk about it, so that it's not controversial. But they were the Wachowski brothers, and now I think they prefer Wachowski's siblings.
Okay.
Because they both transitioned, not just one of them, both of them transitioned.
Are they twins?
You know what? I don't know that part.
Okay.
They don't look alike, so they could be non-identical twins.
Right.
But,
I'm just wondering if there was an age difference. If
I don't know. I saw them a lot in behind the scenes before their transition and post transition.
Okay.
So they look like they could be the same age or different. I don't know. They have, you know, an unusual look.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, that's a side thing. But I loved The Matrix. That was what totally pulled me into the whole world of film. And then from there, it was spending years fantasizing about it. Like I wasn't very good at sitting down and writing, so it was just fantasizing constantly, just always thinking about it and sitting in the car and staring and just thinking about different storylines. And music was a huge part of that. You know, that was even the first album I ever bought was Celine Dion album, the one that had.
You're so confident in that. I love it.
It had My Heart Will Go On it, and it had there was a couple great songs on that album.
Nice.
Either way,
just admit it. You love the whole thing.
Yeah, there's the whole thing. But I would listen to that, and it was so emotional that I was seeing things in my mind. I was seeing stories, and you know, I was very melancholy, so I felt all these emotions, and then it bled over into all the other music I listened to. It was, you know, I also listened to Enya all the time. You know, like big sweeping
love Enya
sounds that she created. So a lot of that was the way I spent my developing years, junior high, high school. I was just a very melancholy kid. I typically withdrew, but not because I was sad or I didn't want to be where I was. It was because I liked watching where I was. Yeah. Like I always liked sitting and just absorbing it and looking around, and I'd be thinking things. So people would think I was sad often or like, what's going on? But I was actually really content because I was all up here, just like picturing things, you know? So, but again, I didn't have a good habit of exercising those thoughts. You know, I didn't have a good habit of doing something with it, you know, to just create content. I didn't have that habit, which is so wonderful now with these young kids with YouTube and with all these different platforms that they actually have a chance to exercise that, you know, passion and then put it somewhere where they could get critiqued, you know, and they have to deal with whether it was good or not, or whether, you know, like that's just wonderful.
Yeah.
So at that time there wasn't that outlet, and I don't know if I would have even done it anyways. But yeah,
you would have, because we made scary movies together.
That's true.
Like,
yeah,
and you had a whole script back in high school that you cast, and like, you remember that?
Yeah, I'm characterizing myself a little I'm underplaying some.
I'm
of the,
here to bring you back.
Yeah.
Good, I'm
because we
glad.
were friends in what, fifth
Yes.
and sixth grade,
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, I think it started in 6th grade, and yes. So you were in my. I relied a lot on found footage films because
okay.
that was the kind of camera we had, and so my sensibilities were, if I can't make it look like a real movie, then I can't pretend that I'm making a real movie. So it has to be found footage. That was my
Okay.
only option because that's what it looks like. So
I can't believe at that stage you were like, this has to be believable.
yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah. It sort of was a detriment to a certain degree. Speaking of that story, because
Yeah.
I wrote the I wrote that script and I went to go film it, and it was 2 days in before I called off production. I just said,
Oh.
we're not doing it, because I was looking at the dailies. We'll call them dailies
Yeah.
as if it was real. I looked at them and I just said, this looks terrible. This looks like, I mean, what you would think it would look like, you know,
Right.
very, very independent. And so I just said, I can't do it. It was a huge, like, end of times type post-apocalyptic movie. Why I thought I'd be able to execute on that, I have no idea. So I called that off. But yeah, I had a script there to make a little short film.
But didn't you call it off within? I mean, you worked on that for a long time. Like, you were young and you were working on that. And you were very
Yes.
serious about it.
Yeah, I loved the whole idea. It was a huge action sci-fi movie, and and I was working on the story for a while, and I had a friend who was supposedly really experienced in screenplays kind of work on it and try to adjust it, and then we started filming, and that was when it just hit a wall, and I just couldn't.
Well, that was even before like DSLR cameras.
Yes, it was before DSLR cameras.
So, I mean, it was before
yeah.
they shot video.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was like, I don't even know. David, it blows my mind that you spent the amount of time and energy and got as far as you did on that.
Yeah.
To be honest with you,
Yeah.
it was such a crazy
Yeah.
feat.
But
so
was
I commend
anybody-
commend you for it.
Was anybody else on the project sad that you were calling it off, or was everyone kind of like, this is
No,
not...
they were okay because it wasn't a big deal to them. They're just sort of helping, you know.
Okay.
So we went to after the day we canceled it, which was a day we were supposed to be filming. I just said, guys, I'm sorry, it's not coming together. And we went. It was a rainy day. We went and got Long John Silver's. Just sat there, and that was our final meal. I was like, this is it.
Long John Silver's.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't think I've ever eaten there before.
Yeah. Really? You have never eaten at Long John
I remember
Silver's?
the commercials and being like, ooh, like a fish taco or whatever they have.
Yeah. Ugh, that sounds gross when you say it that way.
Look good.
Yeah. So that was that experience. And then I went to Booker High, where they had a VPA program and all that kind of stuff. So I got to work on some things. The only short film I ever made was the one you have to make when you graduate, which is like your senior
Okay.
thesis. So out of all those years, I made one short film, and it was that one.
Was it like your project?
It
or
was my project, yeah.
Okay.
And again, it was an example of how I had such a hard time making something that wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And I could act in other people's stuff. I loved doing that because it was in their hands how
Right.
it turned out. And so I was very forgiving of that. But when it was mine, I could not get myself to do it.
Yeah.
I just kept coming up with ideas and thinking, I'm not going to be able to do that. So the short film was called Imagination. It was a simple thing where it, like an intern just taking paper from the boss's office to go get it copied. It was like this whole action adventure in his
Ooh.
mind. So that's all it was.
Was it one of those like he sees it and it plays out and then it shoots back and he's like still in that
Yes.
first frame?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, yeah, it's like it's sort of based on the era of the 24, like the TV series 24. Piku, that thing. It was based on that sort of Jack Bauer world.
Okay.
So he would flash from the errand to go get copies into that world, and then once he got the copies, he was back.
Okay.
You know,
I like
in
that.
his world. So a simple idea, you know, one that has been done in many different iterations. So, but either way, that was the one I did, and then from there I went to California. I went to California the first time when I was 19 to be behind the scenes. It was leaning toward directing, writing, just to get on set, start to get experience, and then that just didn't pan out. I didn't have the gumption of going to like make connections, and when you're on set, talk to people. You know, like that's what you have to do. You have to be networking constantly, and I just didn't have
Really?
that. Yeah.
Just as like a coffee runner or something? Like
Yeah.
you have to just be talking to
Yeah,
everybody?
you just get to know people. You're there, you're present, you're where they need you to be all the time, you know? And but that's hard to do. If you don't have
Yeah.
that kind of personality, it's hard to just manifest that all of a sudden.
Right. Well,
So-
did you make it onto some film sets?
Yes, not very many film sets, commercial sets, you know. a couple shows, here and there. One of them was Nip Tuck, but it was like an impromptu.
I love Nip Tuck.
Are you serious?
Used to, yeah, for real.
Wow.
Wait, it was an impromptu?
I mean, don't tell anyone. Hopefully this won't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved it.
We'll make sure this one doesn't work so we don't put it up. Yeah, it was an impromptu because I was not officially a part of their set, but I ended up helping because they needed people to keep something quiet over here. So I was like, I'm going to help. I'm going to be here. So I was helping through. It was they were in the mall, and it was a Christmas episode, but it was months before Christmas. So the whole mall looked like Christmas, and they were walking through, the characters were walking through the whole vibe of the season. Mm-hmm. So that was a really cool experience.
Wait, so this production company came in and just did them all?
Yeah.
Just as Christmas in the middle of the year or whatever?
Yeah. You because I worked in that mall.
Okay.
And you walk in, and all of a sudden it's Christmas, like overnight, and you're kind of going, well, that seems wrong, unless I don't understand something, and then you start to see more pieces, and all the trucks are outside, so you don't see them because they're behind the mall, so you wouldn't recognize that this is filming until you really start to look and go, that's what's going on, and then the cameras, obviously.
Right. So do they have to close the mall down for that kind of stuff? I've always wondered how big public.
The big public ones, they're able to keep it running because they just need a certain zone to be right.
Okay.
And then they let the rest of it just roll. The same thing happened with Gilmore Girls. I was working a shift that day, and was walking around by an escalator and looked over and saw the mom and the daughter standing like they do on the cover of the DVD, like shoulder to shoulder, just looking at me. And I went, that's really happening. That's not a billboard. Yeah. And then they were filming, like they were going down the escalator and then walking over to do their little scene. Their long takes, like Gilmore Girls did a lot of Aaron Sorkin like banter. But I mean, I didn't buy it as much.
Okay.
They weren't as good at executing Aaron Sorkin style.
I was gonna say,
but
Aaron Sorkin is a god at fast, smart
dialogue. Yeah. And not everybody can do it. Like not every actor can execute on his writing. It's like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, Aaron Sorkin's that's incredible what he does.
Yeah.
Did you get into Newsroom?
A little bit.
Love that show.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, what happened was there were a few Aaron Sorkin things that I had seen in a close proximity to one another, and what started to happen for both Bobby and I was we started to hear Aaron Sorkin himself in every character.
Interesting.
So it was like everybody sounded as witty as he is. Everybody sounded as, like quick-witted as he is. And it started to like take us out because it was like too many smart people talking, back and forth. And it was like, it's okay when it's isolated to 2 or 3 characters, but when everybody's just rolling, that's when we started to like hear his cadence, and we could hear the types of repeat things he would do, like he kind of does like the Seinfeld thing where it's like repeat the thing, repeat the thing, repeat thing,
Yeah.
And then that sort of every now and then when that happens, when you pick up too much on an artist's tendencies, sometimes it can take you out.
Right.
But again,
was this just in Newsroom or because you had already watched other stuff?
It was because we had already watched other stuff.
Okay.
And then it retroactively affected things. Like I watched The Social Network a little bit later, like after that had happened, and all of a sudden, like the whole movie was just Aaron Sorkin was talking. I was like, the whole thing. I was going, oh no, I really liked this movie. And now all I can hear is the same like delivery of everything.
Right.
So, but
a little bit of the movie magic.
Yeah. I know.
Okay, so did you know that was going to happen when you were so young and you were like, this is the thing I want to do? Like, how much would you think your idea of making movies has changed between then and now?
Oh man. It's a lot has changed. I mean, I think there is a phase where you think anything is possible, and you really just, you just imagine that there's a threshold you cross when you graduate into just, that's your career.
Yeah.
You get to do exactly the thing you wanted to do, the version you wanted to do of it.
Right.
And then that starts to change. You start to learn things like what you're capable of, that maybe someone else could have gone out at 19 and executed on the idea I had in my head. But I had to learn my limitations, like what I was capable of, what my tendencies were, like the kind of hurdles of, I would in an area I'm unfamiliar, I get quiet. I don't push. I sit and I watch to find out, like, where's my place? So all those kinds of things, you start to learn, okay, those are my limitations, which would mean this idea I had of the career being right at my fingertips isn't true if I'm not going to go grab it. You know, if I'm not actually the person that just says, that's mine. So then it started to slow down, and, you know, and then I realized, okay, there's a lot at play here. And the more time I spent with it, the more I realized, even for the people who are successful and they're aggressive and they're always going, it's an industry of like luck or lightning in a bottle, you know? I mean, they even the most ambitious, successful people, not even just in this industry, and most of them, they will say, like, yes, I worked hard, but the problem is I have other friends who I know work just as hard and they are not making it like I am, you know? So it's like, they don't see it simply as, oh, you just got to have that, you know, that desire.
Even though that's what literally every superstar, they're like, so what's your advice to people who want it? And they're like, just work hard and, you know, be talented. And you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, all you gotta do is work hard. If you want it bad enough, it's gonna happen. But to me, I have found far more comfort in the reality of there being a certain level of, you know, I guess like a roll of the dice to it, because it's like, I don't need there to be a fairy tale about why people do what, or I don't need there to be like, if there's a combo you give me and I execute on those things, it's going to happen for me. It's just that element of life where things happen, you're in the right place at the right time, or the wrong place at the wrong time, whatever it may be. It's like, it's okay that it works out that way. And it doesn't stress me out. That doesn't make me think, well, I want to have control over it all. I just think, you know, that's the beauty of life, is that you try, and it works out great for the person who did 1/4 of what you did.
Right.
You know, it's like, that's fine. That's just because you still did the thing. You still tried. You still put the effort in. And, you know, so that kind of stuff, when it comes to learning the reality of how the industry works and the odds that are stacked against you and how huge those odds are, it sort of discouraged me at first, but really now it makes it even more magical, because you realize how, you know, when a film comes together, or when a career comes together, it's magic, because no one really knows how it happened, you know? I mean, there are people like Tom Hanks who sit there and say, I'm not entirely sure when a movie's going to be good until either far into production or after it gets edited and he sees it, you know? And you would think by that point, wouldn't he know when he reads a script, this is a good movie or not? Right. It's like he doesn't. There are so many variables that are going into play that you just don't quite know. Yeah. And so that's exciting, and it's scary, but you know, I prefer knowing the truth than living in the fantasy of, you know, I just need to do this and this and it'll happen, and I just, you know, all that kind of thing. So
do you feel like going out to California the first time was that reality check? The like, oh, this isn't the thing? Or did you kind of, after watching behind the scenes or whatever it was up until that point, did you kind of start to change and grasp the idea of what it would be, or was it kind of a big shock?
It was, the big shock the first time was the learning what my limitations. That was the big shock of going, okay, so I don't just show up and all of a sudden become this person I've never been. You know, like, I'm still shy during this time, or I'm still withdrawn when I do this kind of interview. So that was sort of, okay, I have to accept that. Then the second time I went out was a little bit more of the reality of how many people are pursuing it. And yeah, because I had an acting coach who specifically referenced at the beginning of one of our New Year's, when we were, you know, it was like, I forget what year it was, but he said, just so you all understand, every new year when it starts, there are 10,000 new actors that enter Los Angeles. And that's just in that point. Like they say, typically every new year introduces 10,000 new actors. And so he says, you guys have been here, so you have the head start. He was sort of a motivational type acting coach. He was like the kind that said, like, you've got to go get it. Yeah. And so accepting that, just knowing that there's a lot of other people who want this, and there's other people who are you. Like that's the other big part of something that you encounter when you're doing it by yourself out there, compared to what people at home saw in you. People at home see you as someone special. Like, David, I know you can do it. I see it in you. You're awesome. You're amazing. And that feels great. But when you get out there, you learn that they don't understand you already exist in like 500 other people in LA,
Right.
or in wherever city it would be, you know, where they're looking for people. You actually have to accept that you are the one who goes into a room and sees duplicates of yourself, and you see them have strengths that you don't have. You know, it's like maybe they have a little bit more masculinity to them, or maybe they have a little bit more of this, or they've got more charm, or he seems to come across more confident, but they still look like variations of you.
Right.
And then you go, okay, well, now it's understanding that I wasn't quite as unique as the people back home thought I was, you know.
Yeah.
Because you romanticize, you watch award shows and you hear them get up there and they're saying how they did it, or that they went out there and they tried and they want other people to do that too. And it seems like, oh, well, you're sitting here in my living room, you're special like them, you want to do what they're doing. But once you get out there, you find out, oh, that like Amy Adams did it, but there was, 500 other Amy Adams that didn't do it, that were possibly better than her, like that had things that she doesn't have, you know? And again, that's what a lot of them know. They're humbled by that. Like a lot of them know they're not in the illusion that they actually are. They had something that no one else had. It's like they know. A lot of them even talk about, I don't know if you've even heard this, but I have heard so many successful actors reference that sort of trope of, I'm afraid that someone's gonna find me out and they're gonna find out that I'm a fraud.
Yeah.
And that feeling is because they understand there's no way I actually have everything needed for every role that I've been in.
Yeah.
There's other people who could do it better. And I'm just so scared that one of these moments a director's going to go, you can't really do all these different kinds of roles, can you? You know? And then you go, oh no. Even Tom Hardy says that. Tom Hardy has specifically said he feels like the clock's ticking and one director's going to look at him and say, I just realized you're not that talented.
That guy is a chameleon.
Yeah.
He looks physically different in every role, and he can sound different.
Yeah.
That is nuts.
I know. Yeah. When you realize people like that have that thought and have that realization, you go, okay, I don't need to be afraid of that thought. I don't need to be afraid of being self-conscious, But at the same time, if it holds me back, that's where it becomes like the toxic thought. It existing isn't necessarily so bad, but if it affects my willingness to try, that's when that's the unhealthy dosage that you've taken in. So so in that way, it's changed in becoming far more realistic and understanding the odds being stacked against me. That's all new stuff that I've learned, but it still feels magical. I still romanticize about it and that kind of career. And then anxiety got introduced into the mix, which
for the first time in your entire life?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. So that, which you encountered a little bit of when I came by you and Ryan's house that one night, and I was stressed. I was far worse on the inside that I probably came across on the outside, but that was because it was pretty close to when I came back from California, and I just had anxiety that I'd never dealt with before.
So this was the second time that.
Yeah. It was. Yeah.
So I do want to get there. So you went out there like a few years ago, the first time? When was that?
Well, the first time was 19 years old.
Okay.
Like 07, 06.
And you were out there for how long?
6 months.
Okay.
And then after that, there was a gap of getting jobs, like actually working and, getting a restaurant job here back home and getting a pool cleaning job. I cleaned pools for 4 years.
Nice.
So had that experience. And then worked with you and Ryan for a while. Yeah. Before going out to California.
And we found out you were an amazing artist as well. So you actually came here to do video and then did like one project.
Yes.
The whole rest of the time you were doing like little cartoon drawings and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you still draw?
Yes. I mean, I still have I've capped at the same level, like I do the same kind of characters. So, cause I haven't kept.
I mean, they look amazing.
No,
So
well,
that's a good cap to be at. So you came back, did a slightly more creative job.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know how creative you can get with cleaning pools, but.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It was just sort of needing to make money. And then by the time I got here, when I was working, with both you and Ryan, that's when I got to the point of knowing I was going back to California. So I was starting to I have to get back into the mindset of creativity and, the artistry of it.
You're welcome. No,
No, seriously though. I mean, really I was so grateful because I reached out to Ryan and within a few seconds there was a text response of, of course, let's have a conversation. The conversation happened, and I had the opportunity to be here and start to get those juices flowing.
Nice.
And it's just, I'm so grateful for that. That's such a big deal.
Well, I remember you being so nonchalant about what you were doing in town, because we have several, like, this is actually a pretty artsy town.
Yes.
Especially the older crowd really likes live theater, things like that. And you were in what was the play that you were in?
The Addams Family.
The Addams Family.
Yes.
So I remember I went there, and we actually had to pull it out of you that you were in a play, first of all.
Right.
We like found that out, and you had not said anything, didn't invite anybody. Like, it was just not a big deal. And then when a couple of our coworkers found out, they were like, we're going to see him. And you were like, oh no.
Yeah.
So then we showed up, and we were like, yay, we can't wait to see him. And the entire cast was in crazy costumes, like huge white wigs, white powdered faces, like all this stuff. And so we were looking for you the entire time, like, where is he in this? Yep. And then suddenly you come running out from the side, and I'm like, he's dressed in normal clothes. Like, that is David, like right there.
He just showed up as
and you
David.
like came out singing, and we were like, he can sing. Like, it was absolutely crazy. So what was going through your mind at that time? Were you kind of like, I just need to get a little bit of my foot in the door before I move out there?
Yeah. It was essentially, it came from a conversation with my dad when I was saying I want to go back out to California, and he said, then start here, just start doing things here, like,
nice.
Because you don't want to just save it for when everything's perfect, then I'll start doing the acting thing. So I took it to heart. That's part of the reason why I started working here as well, to get the creative stuff, and then auditioned for that play, which I am not a theater person. I'm not an actor who wants to go into theater, nor am I a versatile singer. So that was one of those moments where I said, I'm just going to do it, because I'm entering the world of just do it, you know? And so it worked. I got chosen over a younger man than me who had a better singing voice, unquestionably. He had really good theater control over his vocals, which I didn't have the training. I also have a weird limit to the volume of my voice. It'll start to break at a certain point.
Okay.
So they still chose me, and and that was part of the reason why I was quiet about it at work, was because I thought I don't want them to think that I can really sing, because I can't necessarily pull it off, but it's a nice local theater. So
I was gonna say, you definitely fooled us, because we were so impressed, because we did not know that you sang. It was crazy.
Well, thank you. I'm glad it was enough to get by at least. But and then Sabrina, the co-star girl, the girl who was Wednesday, she was incredible. Her voice was like, I was so thankful for that voice, because I thought that distracts from anything else that's not working. It was like her voice. But yeah, so that was the moment of just saying, I have to try. I have to just do something, and I'm going to get on stage. And I had panic attack type scenarios there, which was the first time I ever felt that debilitated by it.
Wow.
But it wasn't bleeding into my normal life. Like, it wasn't a part of just everyday panic or anxiety. It was just exclusively at the moment of specific nights. It wasn't every performance, because we did a lot of them. It was it was like the first opening night when everyone else started getting really weirded out by, writers being there and everything, local writers. It doesn't matter. But I was getting so concerned, and all of a sudden, it was before going on stage, it was like my body was putty, and I thought, I cannot go on stage. I can't do it.
Oh no.
And I just went out. Anyways, it's the kind of thing where you go, let's just find out what happens. Do I collapse? What happens? So you find the way. My throat was closing up, which is what happens when I get nervous. It just closes up, and I had to like swallow, and it gets really dry. So I was trying to sing through that, and it was all sorts of. There were a few performances where that happened.
Do you feel like it suffered, or just in your head you knew what was going on?
In my head, I don't think anyone else. Yeah, I think it was just in my head.
Okay.
There were moments where I could feel just like my ears would get hot, and it was horrible. It felt so terrible. Yeah. And then I'd go to sleep that night knowing I had a performance the next day, and I'd be going, I can't do this. So it was really difficult, but got through it. The anxiety didn't bleed into the rest of my life at that point. Like, even after the play, it didn't linger with me. But the seeds were planted, so I realized, so that, it was just to get going, to feel what it felt like. Not the kind of character I'd want to be. It wasn't the subtleties of on-camera acting. That's what I love, the boisterous theater acting where the whole auditorium has to feel you. Yep. That's hard,
Yeah. A lot of people don't know that there is you're not just an actor and like go anywhere, do anything, like do a commercial, do this drama. Like, there's a skill within people to
Mm-hmm.
kind of either pull that out and explore it, kind of like what you're talking about with being found out, like, oh, you don't have that thing inside of you.
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel like theater, now Hugh Jackman does Broadway and film. So it's like,
Goodness, yeah.
that man is amazing. But there really is a quality to that theater. And would you say it is just that like larger than life presence?
Yeah, yeah. It's a certain kind of presence that, there's different versions of it. And there are people who just have, when they're on stage, they're so comfortable and you can feel their energy. Or even if they're not comfortable, it's on the outside, it still pulsates. Like you can still tell, wow, they can command this room,
Yeah.
And it's just something special because same thing happens for on camera. There's people like Joaquin Phoenix are just compelling on camera.
Right.
You put the camera on him and you want to see what's going on in his mind. What's the character thinking? And he doesn't even have to be acting to do that. So same with theater actors. They can just step out and you go, okay, that's interesting, and
I think you said that recently, that interesting actors are often interesting people.
Right. Yeah.
So how true would you say that? Like, have you ever found somebody that you were so enthralled by in a movie and then you watch an interview and you're like, what?
Right. Yeah. Well, it's tough. There are certain people that they have felt like they are acting in certain movies, and then you see them in an interview and they seem really down to earth, and you go, oh, that kind of makes sense. That must be why, because you're very normal. So when you act, you kind of feel like you're acting. And then I'm trying to think if there's someone who was really compelling in a movie and they ended up being sort of, because even when you look at people like Robert Downey Jr., he's not a chameleon, he's typically himself, but he has a little bit of that Mel Gibson vibe where when you see him in interviews, they're really quirky. Like they kind of have like weird, ways about how they say things, or they get kind of awkward.
Yeah.
You think you're really suave on screen, but you're really awkward in real life. And because Mel Gibson's got that in spades. He is like on screen, you go, that guy's really cool. In an interview, he's just, like, he's, moving. I mean, I fidget a lot too, but I'm like a Daniel Radcliffe fidgeter. It's like, but he just has like a really quirky way about him. So it just, there's something about those types of people that they bring something to the camera. And then there's the people who, they're not weird. Like Tom Hanks is not weird in reality, but he's so warm, and his warmth comes across on screen. He's just an inviting character.
Yeah.
So even when he was young, it was just you sympathize with him. He was the everyman. Right. And when you see him in interviews, you go, man, you are just as inviting. So
I agree. Have you watched his son in anything?
Yes. I'm trying to think of what.
I watched him in Life in Pieces.
No, I did not see that.
Have you heard of that show or seen anything?
I don't think I recognize that.
It's a great one.
Is it new?
Probably new-ish, like at least a couple years. But it's basically just like episodes of, it's one of those like multiple families. It's like the grandparents, children, and their families. So it's kind of like that extended group, which, I mean, there's a bunch of TV shows like that.
Right.
But this one it's like in pieces. So they almost show in every episode these like chunks from each of the families. And then at some point in the episode, they all kind of come together to tell one story.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
It's really, it's very unique. But he's, what is his name? His son's name?
Is it more, is it a little bit more nuanced than This Is Us? Like This Is Us does the pieces thing, but it's very heavy-handed.
I have not seen that.
You haven't seen it?
It's definitely not a drama. It's a comedy.
It's light. It's a pretty light show.
Oh, okay.
It's fun. You'd love it.
Oh,
it is a lot of fun.
It's worth watching. I think it's on Netflix.
Yeah, Colin Hanks is his name. But when we saw his face, we were like, "Who is that?" And then we're like, "A Hanks, of course, that's his son." But similar quality, where even though he's playing a character that it's weird. I don't know how to describe this type of character. Maybe you could help me. So he's like, can be goofy, but then like those characters where when they're in pain, they're almost like you can laugh at them.
Yes.
Like he hurts his back, and it's almost like the audience watches and they're like, but he's like rolling around like in anguish.
Right.
So it's one of those definitely lovable, but then they have that side of them that like you laugh when they're annoyed or hurt. It's not like, oh, I feel so bad,
Right. Yeah.
So he plays definitely a lovable character, but I totally agree. I think when you have something natural,
Mm-hmm.
which, I mean, if it's passed from father and son, like maybe that just is kind of how they are. Or maybe
Right.
Colin watching his dad in movies
Yeah,
maybe brought
right,
that
yeah.
out. I mean, he's a great resource.
Right.
You're like, hey, dad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's crazy.
I love that. I especially love when there's people that are related and you can kind of see little semblances of their older, more famous parents or whatever.
Yeah.
But somebody that came to mind, did you ever watch any interviews of Heath Ledger?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
He was the one that you watch him on screen. He's this charming, confident, goofy, all sorts of things. And in every interview, it was like, it almost looked like he was on drugs, like always scratching, always just like so uncomfortable and ready to just get out and go.
Yeah.
And obviously, the more you look into his personal life, you're like, or anybody's life, who would want to do what actors have to do when they have a new movie or show coming out?
Oh, I know. Seriously, yeah, I know. Yes.
Like,
Yes.
have you practiced being on talk shows? Like,
No, oddly enough, my grandparents have a talk show.
what?
Yeah, on the Christian television network in Tampa.
It's like currently happening?
Yeah, it's been happening for 25 years or 30 years now.
What?
Yeah, so
That's
I've
amazing.
yeah, so I've grown up, every now and then going on that throughout the different
no
ages.
way.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that is nothing compared to what a press tour is,
Right,
and where
right.
that press tour may take you, and the kinds of people when you have to do those days where you sit in the same seat and the
Yep.
reporters come
Yep.
in one after the other, and they all can use the same shot of you and basically ask the same kinds of questions, but every now and then try to ask one that's going to be able to be a good thumbnail or something.
Right.
Like that type of thing. I have no idea what that's like. The tiring nature of having to answer questions about a character that you haven't played in 8 months, that you've
Yeah.
said goodbye to for a while, and
Yep.
now you have to talk about them, and you have to try to get back to that space, and you have to answer questions about how you did certain stuff when sometimes you leave that behind. Like, how did you cry in that scene? And you're going, in the moment I was using stuff, but it's kind of gone now.
Right.
Or you don't want to talk about how you got there because it's personal.
Right.
And the people you work with on set, they understand that it's sacred. So you can work on it. It's very intimate. And all of a sudden you come out in public and they're like, tell us how you did it.
Yeah.
And you're going, that was, that took a lot out of us. You know?
Right.
So all that kind of stuff would be very difficult. Yeah, I can't even imagine going through that whole process and all the different tension and stresses you feel, and the traveling and being away from your family, or and just having to answer random questions that tend to be the same ones over and over again.
Yeah.
And you got to try to be on and be ready to be like charming for them so that they get a good,
Yeah. Did you ever see, I love watching compilation videos, and this was a clip in one of them. Do you know who Cara Delevingne is? I think I may be mispronouncing.
I feel like I can see that name.
She was a model who now does some acting. She has like a very, like her nose is very like cute and pointy, very crazy eyebrows. Like she's kind of known for her eyebrows.
I'm sure if I saw a
I think
picture, I would recognize.
Ryan's trying to pull her up.
Oh, yes, of course.
So
yes.
she did a movie,
Yeah,
and
she's been in quite a few.
oh yeah. And she's so hilarious. Like one of those gorgeous, gorgeous people. And then she like gets the picture and then does something ridiculous and goofy and ugly. And you're
Right.
like, what? That's the same person? She's amazing. But
Yeah.
in one of the interviews, it was one of those like news stations, not like I'm on Ellen or
I know
I'm,
what you're talking about.
and they were
Yes.
like, you seemed a lot more excited in the other interviews. And she was just sitting there like just normal.
Yeah.
And she was just kind of answering like nonchalant stuff. And then when he
Right.
said that, it was so rude. And she was just like, what? Like, why would you ask me that? And
Yeah.
it's weird because your entire career could basically be made in one of those moments, like how you respond
Yeah.
to that. Or like she could just be having like a tired day,
Yeah.
and then they call her out on it, and then she has to respond to it.
Right, yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
I think that talented people, it's almost like part of the deal is you have to sell your soul. Like you have to, you can do something that not everybody can do. And then it's almost like anyone and everyone can have opinions. Your life is
Yeah.
open for
Yeah.
them to come grab you
Yeah.
and take whatever they want out of you. And it's really weird because not too long ago, you could not find any, besides like behind the scenes or like the press tour stuff, you did not know who those stars were.
Right.
And it felt very, I want to go to this premiere because maybe I'll see them from afar on the red
Yeah,
carpet. It
yeah.
became this like you could see them in these specific places versus I want to book them for my birthday. And it's like, is that possible? Well, probably if you have enough money and someone can connect them somehow. So it's like, there's so much more attainable and just right out for you, which is probably another reason why a lot of people now think like, what do they have that's so special?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Cause you start to see the way people look at you and you go, I don't think these people understand that I am just like them.
Right.
Like I do the same kind of stuff and I get caught in the same binge watching session on my couch and I look the same way, you know? And so it just feels weird to walk out and be magnified, you know, in that kind of way. And then to be scrutinized in a way where you're going, come on, like we all say things not in the perfect way and we don't do the right thing at the right time. And, you know, and then at the same time thinking my craft of acting and then blending it in with me being on all the time as a person, as a human being outside of it is like those two expectations are almost two separate careers.
Yeah.
When I started pursuing the acting side this last time, all of the prep material I was reading and the teachers and coaches I was working with, they all emphasized the fact that essentially you are the product, you're the CEO of your company and your product is you. So you have to understand how to be a manager of your time, how to manage all the different projects you take on. And if you don't have a manager or an agent who is that for you, then that is you, you know? And that's tough for me because I have a hard time selling myself. I have a hard time, you know, trying to promote myself. It's very difficult. And it's not because I have a low self-esteem of what I'm capable of. It's that I much prefer you seeing it in me and utilizing it rather than me having to tell you about it. Which again that's people of experience would say, you know, that's even more unlikely. You know, if the odds are already against you when you're pursuing it, if you're going to say, I hope someone finds it in me, odds just got, you know, even worse that you're going to make it. So it's that kind of thing. You're just working out that mentality and understanding also as an actor what is asked of you when it comes to the emotional places you go, the experiences you have of having to be on set, having this camera pointed at you, and the different relationship that you have with the director or the writer or the co-star, working through all those, bringing out some other side of you that is this character, not really you, and trying to get to these different places, all that extra stress, and then letting that thing go when it's done, letting that character go, or getting out of your head when, man, I never really found that character, so I always felt like I was faking it. All those different struggles you're constantly dealing with is very, very heady career. You know, it's very emotional and taxing, and then you start to realize you write off some of these stupid movies that come out, and you as an actor start to understand, even in those stupid movies, those actors were working really hard to understand the character.
Oh yeah. And
so you're thinking, I thought that was like a write-off movie, you know, they just kind of went in there and whatever.
Right.
But when you're on set and there's hundreds of people walking around trying to put this thing together, you feel the pressure of, this is all for me to perform and bring this to life. So you start feeling like it's a serious thing, even if it's, you know, like I don't know, I can't think of a stupid movie off the top of my head right now. There's plenty of them out there.
The only movies you watch are good.
Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
There you go.
I watched that last night.
Oh.
Yeah. I
turned it off because I was bored out of my mind.
Right. Yeah. And you know, there's work that's put into all those kinds of movies. There's work that's put into, you know, even actors that feel like they don't put any effort into it, they put effort into it.
Right.
And that takes a lot. That's a lot. You know, I even think about, it's a controversial topic, but I think about that thing that happened, the Kevin Spacey video that he just released, where he did the weird thing as the character, and you couldn't tell where the lines were. Like, what is he referring to? He's talking about the character, talking about himself.
Is he technically allowed to do that?
Well, what were your thoughts on that, David?
Wait. I want to know first why. Finish the thoughts, because I have a lot of things I want to talk about.
Let's dive into that now, immediately.
Save that. Right. So what were you going to say?
Well, I was just saying, part of that moment when people watch that and they get weirded out about what he's doing, it's almost like when I was watching it, I was thinking, this is what acting is. It's entering into a very weird gray zone of what's right and wrong. Because when you're in an acting class even, you're all given permission to just explore places that outside of that zone would just be inappropriate or very odd or very awkward, all that kind of stuff. So when you're playing in that zone all the time, which Kevin Spacey he's been in there for a long time now, And this is not in any way justifying any of his actions as a human being,
Right.
mistreating someone else, if that's what happened. It has nothing to do with that. But in this moment of being weirded out at
Right.
what he's doing as an actor, it's like that's where I say, guys, that's what we've been asking these people to do. When we pay money to go watch them do something, what we've seen here, when he acts like this on the screen and you think, man, he's losing his mind, it's like, just so you know, this is behind the curtain. This is
Right.
what we do. I mean, I say we, like I'm not going to that extent, but it's like that's what actors have to do to bring these movies to life. They have to go to those places that kind of make them lose their mind almost.
Right.
You become someone that you wouldn't even like, or the other people. I mean, it's his House of Cards character is someone that if they existed in real life, no one would want to root for him, watch him every week. They wouldn't be rooting him on. But in a show,
Yeah.
when it goes to those dark zones, then you're engaged because
Right.
it's compelling. There's
Right.
like, wow, how did he find that? You would never want him to do that in real life. You don't
Exactly.
want him, so, but when you find out that there's like, but to do it as an actor is in some way to entertain it, to entertain that part of you.
Right.
It's like, that's
So-
the weird thing about acting.
Yeah. Look at somebody like Kevin Spacey in that role, where it's a human being with, darker qualities than the typical person, but
Yeah.
still pretty realistic themes, that are brought forward. So that is one. And then look at Heath Ledger playing the Joker. So apparently he spent 3 months or something in a apartment
Right, yeah.
as the Joker, and just like he wrote as him, spoke as him,
Yes.
sat as him, walked as him, became the Joker.
Found the laugh. He tried to find that laugh in there
Right.
too.
And there's so much about the Joker that's not in his lines or in his ridiculous costume. It's, you see this person, like watching real people in real life when they're losing their minds, or when there's somebody who's about to do something violent and you're like, that's not them. Like you can just see that something has left them.
Right.
How does an actor do that? Where you have this one side of things where it's like still human. I mean, I would say Heath Ledger played a monster as the Joker, but technically he was still supposed to be a human who just went really, really far down the bad path.
Right.
So you have these two characters that are compelling because of that dark side. And that's what I think a lot of us viewers are drawn towards, those darker themes, because it's so juicy.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, like I told you the other day, like I would love to play an evil queen.
Yeah.
Because there's just that inside of all of us. We love to play in that and dabble in it and then throw it away or just decide that's what I want to do forever. And I think acting gives people that place to do it. But when things like Kevin Spacey playing that character, and then, I mean, I would say his personal life kind of went a little crazy, and like that's why he's not super well received.
Yes.
But then you look at somebody like Heath Ledger. How do you think the producers and the people behind making these things, how do you think they feel when the people that they're employing to bring these things to life do kind of go crazy?
Yeah, that's, I mean, to a certain degree, there's a level of independence that's given to the actor's experience and what they're going through, because they're making a product, they're making a film, and so they need this actor to do whatever they have to do to execute on this. So in a way, the actor is very self-governing, and the director is the one who can kind of get in there and really understand what's going on and how do I get the best performance out of you, or how are you feeling? What performance do you think you have in you? But and so when it comes to layers out and the cast or the rest of the crew and producers and all that kind of stuff, there's a level of understanding that this is their craft, and it's not necessarily on them to keep track of how far they're going, how deep they're going, which again is why the sudden accountability of Hollywood about what was happening on set and how people were treated is sort of blindsiding a lot of people. It's because the lines are blurred on set, and even in theater, like backstage, it's just things get out of control where there are a lot of people who are uncomfortable and they keep their mouth shut because, again, you feel as if, well, this is what this industry is. It's about putting yourself constantly in really uncomfortable scenarios because it puts you on edge, which you may find a new part of yourself in that, and then there are other times where you literally become a victim of it. You become a victim of it either because you went to a dark zone yourself and you can't get yourself out, which happens many times. It's like Jim Carrey, he went to a zone that literally never left him. It just lingered forever. It changed the way he sees the world. Or you become a victim because other people going to those places affect you.
Yeah.
You didn't want to go there, and now they're doing weird things to you, or they're treating you in weird ways, or they're doing stuff that their character would do, but they're method acting, so they're not pulling out of their character.
Right.
Which means they're doing stuff to you that you would go, that's inappropriate, but this is the industry, and
right.
so it's really tough. So turning the light on that all of a sudden, and having a whole bunch of people who have not been a part of that world start to judge that world, it gets dicey real quick, which is why actors aren't even totally sure how to handle it.
Right.
Like when they're asked about it, they're kind of going, I don't want to comment because I can't tell where the lines are anymore.
Right.
I know that doing something bad to someone who doesn't want that done to them, that's obviously wrong.
Right.
But I also know that there's a lot of things that happen that if the average person saw it, they would condemn it.
Yeah.
And for a long time, Hollywood was not condemning it. So it's like, that's the part where you go, what are we supposed to do now?
Right.
Because again, we're exploring some weird places and doing some weird things. So yeah.
And then you get like rock stars and like musicians.
Mm-hmm.
They can do ridiculous stuff, and it's like, well, yeah, how else are you going to get inspiration to write that music? And
Right.
it's like, how else do you think you're going to get inspiration to play a murderer when you're not a murderer? What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to become one.
Right. Yeah.
Well, hopefully not literally,
Yeah.
but like you're supposed to do it. And in order to be believable, and that's what I think a lot of people take for granted, because it's entertainment for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they get to say, this was good, this was bad, without having any sort of education in the matter, experience whatsoever.
No skin off their nose. They can just go, oh, that was stupid.
Right. And what goes into all of that behind the scenes is, like you said, so complex.
Mm-hmm.
And if you try to put rules on how to do it, you're probably not going to get the same kind of stuff that was happening before. Like the movie Blue Lagoon, is that what it is? The weird one, Ryan?
Blue Lagoon.
The one with
the old one with the naked kids.
The old one. Okay, so this was a movie that I would never be allowed to be made today, but it's still like a classic. And I'm like, what went on that set?
Oh,
it's where they're stranded on a beach island.
Yes, my wife loves that movie. Yeah,
she loves it.
Yeah, well, because she was a kid when she watched it, so
Okay.
she thought it was like so
totally
exotic. And
As
everything.
a kid, that's like that was what I loved. Like I was very similar to you, where I was like, I like to kind of observe things. I like to have just my own imagination. I would have, it sounds weird to say, but like conversations, and I could play characters just in my own head, things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that movie, I can definitely see how kids would be drawn to it.
Yeah.
But when you watch it as an adult, it's like underwater shots of like children swimming, and like when you swim, you're not all covered.
Yes,
and it's like
yeah.
the camera guy's just like underneath them, and they're just going over the camera, and you're like, I can literally see inside of that child. So it's like that movie made it out into the world, and we still watch it. It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
So obviously it was a different time. Like I know that. So I'm not sitting here trying to say like how'd they get away with it. But like there was something magical about that movie, right? It felt very much like they were actually out on an island and there wasn't a camera guy floating around with them. It seemed very realistic, whatever. So then let's say we try to make a movie with any kids. Like I was just asking Ryan the other day, are there any people who make movies where you can basically guarantee the kid is not going to get molested or something like that? I just feel like Hollywood's full of stories like that, where it's like, well, if you're a kid and you're trying to act like you're going to be around adults all day, that's just part of the industry. Like, shh, and just go along your way. So do you feel like everything's going to change now just because of that light being shined?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yes, there's going to be a lot of things that change. I have no idea how to measure what kind of change that will be, or how much it will actually be perceptible or perceivable when you're in a theater watching a movie.
Right.
I don't know how that's going to play out, but I do know for the actual people in the industry, for the way actors are chosen, for the way the sets are handled, I'm sure that's going to totally change. There's going to be different protocol. There's going to be different, it's going to affect that stuff big time. Again, I don't know how the end product will look different, but yeah, it's an industry that for a long time was trying to expose us to the aspects of life, like the real aspects, the fact that kids get naked. So in a movie, we're telling the story, and if they're naked, then we're going to show you, because that's what we're doing. And then to all of a sudden start to realize, well, wait a minute, we don't know, because if you think about the fact that we film them naked, it means that in real life, there was a crew filming kids naked. You
Right.
know, it's like all of a sudden we started to realize, well, hold up, to pull that off,
Right.
you know, something actually has to be happening. Like they actually had to be making out, and their clothes actually had to come off. And she, in real life, may not have been as interested in him
Yeah.
as she had to be in that scene.
Right.
And then, but he may have actually enjoyed it more, and all that kind of stuff. That's some intimidating stuff. Like for actors who have been in the industry for a long time, to look back over your career and hope that no one read something wrong because you had to do there has to be some people like Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
He had to have at some point done stuff that could really be quite questionable.
Misinterpretive.
Yeah. And again, not to excuse everything as she was just misinterpreting it. Like,
Right.
I don't want to mischaracterize it that way, but understanding what Hollywood was trying to do was going to the places that conservatives didn't want to go. Like non-storytellers were afraid to go there, and they said, no, we're going. But there's repercussions for that, and the repercussions are you're on set filming scenes with a whole bunch of people who may not be as respectful as they should be toward the fact that you want to go there, that you want to tell the honest truth of that scene. And, you know, maybe you try to get as many people off set as possible who would not treat it properly. But even so, it's like, that's going to go, it's on footage. It's going to go into editing room. Are the editors going to treat it properly? Is everyone who's sitting in that room when that scene comes on the screen, are they all going to treat it properly? Are they not going to make comments about stuff? You know, it's like, how do you police all that? You know, so that's the part where when all of a sudden Hollywood gets a little bit uptight about it, you think, I mean, there were people long before this saying that Hollywood shouldn't have been making stuff like this because of these reasons, that it was opening a door to inappropriate.
Okay, but that's also how we learned what drug abuse looks like. That's also how we learned about space and the idea that maybe there's something else out there. Like movies, and especially the portrayal of themes and life or whatever through some sort of visual means, that has done so much for people. And just in telling stories, that's like the huge thing that you hear. It's like, oh, I'm a storyteller. Like I love to do these things. I love to tell these stories and bring these characters to life. And without that, like, can you imagine if movies did not exist?
Oh, man.
How much we would miss out on, how much there's just life lessons and stories. Even if the story itself is a bad story, you can still learn something from it. And I feel like putting rules on how you tell, like real life can sometimes be absolutely disgusting compared to a portrayal of something in Hollywood. And if that is getting flack, how are you ever going to show people what that thing really looks like? You can't lie to them and just show this fairy tale version. So then when it happens in real life, it's like,
it's like when I, living a very white boy life in, you know, middle class America, watched Straight Outta Compton. It was exposure to a life that I wasn't aware of, you know, to that degree, because obviously I've seen many movies about that particular lifestyle and those neighborhoods, but the way that movie executed on it was really gritty to a point where it was heavy, you know, and like I really felt it. And they had to do really compromising. They had to film scenes that were incredibly inappropriate, you know, for all intents and purposes. And I'm sitting there watching it going, it's exposing me to it, though. So I can understand what happened in their lives, what happened in lives of people like them who have had to go through the version of America that they went through. To see it that way, it's like that rang more real and true to me than if I just heard about it, you know, or if I just was told, hey, just so you know, some people go through a harder version of America or something.
right.
That made it far more real. And there are really, really questionable scenes in there that you're thinking, hopefully the filming of that scene that day went really respectful. Because there's some stuff happening there going, there's a bunch of side actors. You have to keep track of all them not mistreating one another, not touching each other inappropriately, even though it's sort of, we need you to touch each other inappropriately, you know. That's tough stuff. But at the same time, it's like, it shows you parts of the world that you may not encounter, you know, and then it teaches you something about yourself, and it teaches you something about human nature and the darkness or the hope or the, you know, whatever. So yeah, those types of lines are, it's very interesting to see what's going to happen with all that. And then wanting to get involved at this phase, even as like, I was continually told when I was in California that I have the all-American, you know, white guy look, which right now is not great, you know, because it's not in demand,
right?
You know?
Well, in fact, it's trying to be never seen again.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where, ironically, I picked a time when the odds got even more greatly stacked against someone who looks like me. And again, take offense to that. I'm not going to be like, hey, you know, I need just as much of a shot, because it's fine. It's like at the end of the day, I'm having a great experience pursuing it in any way. It doesn't bother me, but it's still the kind of thing that entering at this point, I know the protocol is going to change. I know they're going to keep track of how many white people there are, and I'm going to be one of those white people. I know how many males. I'm going to be one of those males. You know, it's like how many people look totally all American. That's going to be me. Right. So I know I'm going to have a lot of checks on the boxes checked that are like, he's not really the new person. He's not the new Hollywood. He's going to be the old Hollywood. So that's going to be a challenge. But again, you'd have people who say like, boo-hoo. You know, the people like you have had it for long enough. You know, you can hand off the reins to other people. So either way, I still, it's very interesting to be a part of it. I've committed that for the 100th one. Try that again. I've committed that for the 100th. For the 100th.
We'll give you one more try.
We'll dub it over.
Yeah.
We'll get in post. Don't worry about that.
100th.
Nice.
Oscars.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to be there come hell or high water.
Wait, when is this? How many years do you have?
It's like 5 years away or something.
Okay.
I think we're at 95 or 96 or 94. I don't know.
Okay.
But I was at the gate of that one, you know, standing there watching him get out of the.
You said gate walk.
Yeah, because that's what it felt like.
I love that visual. Let me in.
Yeah, I got to see that. So it may only be that version of being at the Oscars again. Maybe I'll get one of those, you know, bleacher seats. It doesn't matter how. All I know is that like my wife and I and our children or whoever would come with us, I'm going to be at that thing. I'm going to be back in Los Angeles. Whether we live there again or not, I don't know. But 100th, I don't know what's going on with that. I'm going to be standing there. So
well, okay. You know what Chris Martin did from Coldplay? He is on video saying 4 years and we're going to be whatever he said,
right.
#1 selling. He like literally said exactly what was going to happen 4 years and 3 days later. And it was so true. They were at this massive concert. Yeah. So, okay, say it one more time into that camera and I'm going to give you that clip and you get to rewatch it.
Okay. How do I want to say it? I commit that at the 100th Oscars okay, let's do this again.
Cut.
I'm committing now. Can we look up what number we're at right now?
Yeah, hang on, I'm on it.
There is one happening like now. This is Oscar season right now.
Yeah, it's Oscar season right now. He's looking it up for me.
Yeah, we need to know for sure before you make this prophecy.
Yes.
Talk amongst yourselves. It'll take me a moment.
He's operating on the internet. The internet's a provider of information for us.
All right, I've got it up here.
Here we go. What are the Oscars made of? What?
Oh, wow.
Okay. I Googled what Oscars are we on. Is that not the way to Google it?
Say 2019 Oscars, and it will tell you.
Does it?
Oh.
Yeah, that's good.
I think I also...
Did it say 91st? Are we that far away from the 100th? Do I have 9 years? That's even better if I do.
I know. 2019.
Oh, man.
They should tell you, like, right. The 91st.
It's right there.
Oh, I got plenty of time. Okay. I commit that in 9 years, at the 100th Oscars ceremony, I will be standing either at the gate, looking in like I'm at a zoo, or I will be at the bleachers that I think you pay for. I will be walking the red carpet because somehow I know somebody. I'll be in a movie that's there. Any number of things. Regardless, my feet will be there. And the rest of my body.
You heard it.
So... 9 years.
Heard it here first, folks.
That's great, though. 9 years. I was thinking I had 5. So 9, that's a lot can happen in 9 years.
Oh, yeah.